Hello viewers, I welcome you to another interesting edition of Capital Markets right here on Millenium TV. And I'm your host, Doreen. Now do remember that we're coming live and direct from Alongika Studio, Lusaka, Zambia, and you're also catching us live on Top Star Decoder channel 95. We're also streaming live on Facebook. We are Millenium TV-Zambia. Of course, get to like our page, share our page, follow our page, and of course, get commenting and telling us where you're watching us from. And now on this particular edition of the Capital Markets, I'm going to be just looking at the importance of the green bonds that were just recently launched by the SEC, which is a Copper Belt Energy Corporation, Zambia. And of course, on this particular important topic, I'm being joined by Mr. Nonde from SEC, who happens to be the Director Market Supervision and Development. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm glad to have you here on this particular edition of the Capital Markets.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Just before you get to the topic of this particular edition, Mr. Nonde, maybe just tell us a bit about SEC, anything new that our investors out there may be looking out for.
Okay. Well, SEC, as you may be aware, we are a government body. Okay. We were established by an Act of Parliament 30 years ago. Right. Actually, this is our 30th anniversary. So we are celebrating 30 years of existence. We were created to spur economic growth through the capital markets. And by capital markets, we simply mean markets for facilitating long-term finance for any project that people out there are looking for. Okay. So that's something to look forward to. One of the biggest projects that we've recently embarked on is the Capital Markets Master Plan, which is a 10-year plan all the way up to 3031. So that's something that the public out there should look out for, various activities that we'll be doing. And we'll constantly be saying we are doing this because we're implementing this 10-year master plan.
Master plan. Yes. All right, sir. Just as we get to dive into our topic, maybe just tell us more about green bonds. I'm sure that people just out there are hearing this for the first time. What are they and how do they really operate? Okay.
So when we talk about bonds in capital markets, we're basically talking about debt. When you borrow money, you're actually issuing a debt instrument. So bonds are basically medium to long-term debt instruments that a company will issue in order to raise finance for various projects. So mostly they're actually meant to finance projects that a company might have, for example, to expand their operations, to build a plant, whatever the company wants to do in the long term, they'll issue a bond. Now, with green bonds, it's a special kind of bond. As you may be aware, as a country, like everyone else in the world, we are tackling the effects of climate change. So what capital markets have done is they've innovated and come up with this special bond that allows companies to raise debt by issuing a green bond. And all we are saying is this green bond, all the proceeds from the issuance of this green bond will go towards activities that are green. In that they don't perpetrate the harm that is happening to the environment. So either it's green in its nature, it doesn't do any harm, or it aims to reduce the impact on the environment. So those are just some of the elements. So it's not a business as usual kind of project, a bond rather, but it's one that has to show that there is actual benefit in terms of reducing the impact on the climate, through the activities that will be undertaken from the proceeds of issuing this bond. So it's a very strict one. We have various mechanisms of making sure that people don't just claim that a bond is green without evidence that it is actually green.
All right. Yes. So maybe what are some of the advantages towards the capital markets of this particular bond?
Okay, so one of the advantages is it's a response to investors. So when you look at capital markets, we rely heavily on on investors to invest in capital markets instruments. So one of the demands that investors, especially those based abroad, and increasingly the local investors as well, they're demanding that companies adopt green practices in their operations. So they will only invest in a bond in a company that has got elements of green. So they won't come to you if they're not convinced that the money they are putting in your company will contribute in one way or the other into the climate change. So it's very good for us. And also as a jurisdiction, it begins to signal to investors out there that if you want to invest in green projects, come to Zambia, you'll find companies that actually have these green investable projects.
Okay.
So it's from that angle, it's also good. For investors, if you want to make a contribution towards the green fight, why not invest in a green bond? Because at least you have the mechanisms of making sure that the little monies that you're investing is actually contributing to the welfare of the planet.
Oh, okay. So like in terms of the foreign investors, how you come up as SEC to ensure that they're able to know about these particular green bonds and they're able to come on board and get to invest in these different companies in Zambia?
Okay, so because our role is regulation.
Okay.
So if you look at our market players, the brokers and so on, that's actually their role to promote these investments.
Okay.
And they don't promote them not only to foreign investors, but they promote them even to local investors. So, such as your pension funds.
Okay.
So your NAPSA, the famous NAPSA, is one of the biggest investors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you would be interested to know if NAPSA is also looking for green investable projects.
Okay.
And as the capital markets were saying to NAPSA, we do have the framework. So you should encourage the companies that you invest in to invest in green investable projects.
Okay.
So our role is really just to make sure that the frameworks are in place, and then the market players should then be able to do the other in terms of the awareness. Okay. However, we also carry a dual mandate in that we also do market development, and part of that market development mandate is to make the market aware. Okay. Like the question you asked me, what is a green bond?
All right.
So that we do as part of our educational awareness campaigns, both with the investing public, with all our stakeholders, government ministries, the media such as yourselves, the teachers, whoever it is that we can identify that will help us promote this concept of green of green bonds. So that is how we make sure that the messaging on green bonds goes out to the people out there.
Okay, Mr. Nonde, just overall, what does this really mean to the capital markets that now they've launched the green bonds? What are we expecting to see on the capital markets?
So one of the things that you always get from not really the investing, but generally people who are looking for financing is that they can't find a suitable product to invest in, that they can't find a regulatory framework that will allow them to go into a project that's green. Okay. So the issuance of the CEC, the registration and subsequent issuance of the CEC is a very good signal for us in that we're able to show any investor out there, local and foreign, that we actually have these instruments available for issuance in Zambia, that it's actually possible to issue one, and the framework is there, and we've actually got somebody in the name of CEC who have actually gone ahead and successfully issued this green bond. So it encourages other issuers to come forward and also issue a green bond to undertake whatever activities they have. For the investors, it means that they have green bonds that are available on the market that they can invest in.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're just looking at the current products that the market has been having. Yeah. Do you think maybe they've been enough to ensure that the capital markets are developing, or you feel there's a need to keep introducing new products in the market?
Okay. That's an excellent question, and that's a question that we asked ourselves as the capital markets sometime in 2017 when we had a capital markets endeavor where we're saying, what is it that's stopping us from developing as the Zambian capital markets? And one of the issues that came up was there wasn't enough, we call it supply. Okay. There wasn't enough products out there, suitable products out there for people to invest in. So you have your traditional products, your shares listed on an exchange such as the LUCE. You have your bonds, which is like your corporate bonds issued by a corporate or the government bonds traded on the secondary market. You have your collective investment schemes or unit trusts as they are commonly known. But outside of that, you don't really have much choice as an investor. So the answer to that was then we needed to encourage the development of new and innovative products. So as a commission in our strategic plan, we actually have that as an objective to encourage the development of new and innovative products. And and hence why we introduced a regulatory sandbox.
Okay.
So the sandbox just allows us to sort of allow people out there that have come up with innovative technological solutions to come and try them out in a safe environment before we roll them out to the public. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe our green bonds is really just a good investment that we are really going to be hopeful to say really they're going to add up to the development of the capital markets.
Yes. So green bonds, just to emphasize, green bonds achieve two main things. They help us, they help contribute to the development of the country. And that's really what the outcome that you and I should be worried about, that if we issue green bonds, are we really going to see tangible results on the ground? And by tangible, I mean, are they going to help us achieve things like reducing poverty, increasing employment, and so on? But they have an added requirement in that, are they helping us to preserve our environment? Are they contributing to the climate fight? Are they, for example, ensuring that we are preserving our natural resources? People talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity just means if I do a project, am I preserving the nature around that area where my project is located? So all those things are some of the outcomes that you have to look out for, other than the obvious things that you and I are looking for: job employment, reduction in poverty, but primarily the preservation of the environment.
Maybe just to ask you a question maybe kind of out of the topic, but obviously within the topic. From our listed companies on the, let's say, are we having maybe a majority of companies that are actually supporting these green bonds? Or maybe we have a few?
We do have a few. I think, I'm just trying to remember, I think 2021, Ernst & Young actually did a sort of research to see how many companies are actually beginning to think are green. I can't recall the exact percentages, but one of the things that came out of there is companies are increasingly begin to think, how do they transition their operations to becoming more green. But right now it's very difficult to paint a picture because we don't have enough data as a start for us to be able to measure how many of our companies have actually begun to go green. I mean, CEC is the first company to issue a green bond, but over and above that, as a country, we are moving to a situation where we want to be able to gather all this data, especially for our publicly listed companies, where they'll be able to tell us how far along they are in terms of greening their operations. They'll be able to produce what we call sustainable reports. So as a jurisdiction, the Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants has adopted the sustainable reporting standards. So watch this space. Over the next few years, companies will not just be telling you how they've done for the year, but they'll also be telling you about the work they're doing in terms of ensuring sustainability of that. So it's quite a new area. We are quite excited about it because of the fact that it contributes to the green agenda. But it's also good for these companies to begin to tell the public how they're handling issues of climate.
Right. Obviously, to entice them to get to invest in them, right? Well, just looking at what Honorable Engineer Collins Zova alluded to, saying the government have actually come on board to ensure that they are promoting the growth strategy. So now coming to your sake, what are some of the measures maybe that you've put in place to ensure that this comes to pass, like this should be a success? Okay.
So we are closely aligned to the government's green growth strategy. And basically the green growth strategy is a plan that the country is developing to show how are we going to transition all our operations to a green economy. So adding on to that, one of the things that we are doing, we work in collaboration with other financial sector regulators. So the Pensions and Insurance Authority, the Bank of Zambia, and we've also got a few ministries in that working group where we are greening, we call it mainstreaming green finance into the financial services sector. So under that work group, one of the things that we've done in order to actualize some of the things that are in the green growth strategy is one, to ensure that we have a green growth finance strategy. So that strategy is meant to finance the green growth strategy, as it were, through our various areas. So if it's capital markets, the strategy should align, highlight how the finance strategy will finance the green growth strategy. The same goes for the central bank, and the same goes for the PIM. And the whole idea is to make sure that the three financial sector regulators are not doing these things in isolation, but we are doing it in a coordinated manner.
All right.
I talked about tagging and reporting. So you asked me a question like how many companies?
Yes.
And I wasn't able to give you a conclusive response for that. So one of the things that we are doing in order to support the green growth strategy is to develop what is known as a tagging and reporting, mechanism. So what that will do is it will give companies a framework on how to report green finance through the company. So they'll be able to tell us to say, I've done X project, and it's going to cost me so much, and this is how it's contributing to the environment. So that's one of the things that we are working on as a market to support the green growth. And of course the green bonds market development. It's a very big area for us. So through this working group that I talked about, another work stream is the development of the green bonds market.
Well, maybe just touching on the private companies, maybe are you also taking a look at which ones maybe are potential, maybe green projects kind of sort, or you really need wanting to put them on board? Maybe they can also be among the listed so that we get to have maybe a number of companies. Yes,
and I think that's one area where we get very excited. You may be aware that the LUSE, the Lusaka Securities Exchange actually has a smaller board for listing of SMEs. But there's been challenges in terms of having companies list on that. But to answer your question, we actually are looking at initiatives that help capital markets address the funding needs of SMEs. So we are looking at various products. You asked about products. So one of the things we are looking at, how can we structure products that can answer the funding needs of SMEs. So we do have some work streams right now where we've done high level, I don't know, like a market research to identify the opportunities. One is in the renewables energy sector, where SMEs, we've identified about 37 projects and ranked them in terms of bankability. And the next question for us is, what mechanisms can we put in place to scale up these projects done by SMEs and finance them through capital markets instruments. So SMEs rather are really at the back of our minds because about, depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you between 80 to 93% of our economy is SME driven.
For sure, that is a true fact. Well, dear viewers, in case you're just joining us, we are discussing the green bonds and their importance to the development of the capital markets. And my guest on this particular edition of the capital markets, this is Mr. Nonde, who happens to be the Director, Market Supervision and Development. Just coming to you, Mr. Nonde, maybe just taking you to the capital market master plan. So I say, what are some of the things that you feel you've attained that are really adding to the fulfilling of this master plan that was put in place?
Well, it's really in the early stages of implementation. We only had our first steering committee meeting a week ago. But whilst all these other things were happening in terms of establishing the governance structures and so on, we didn't sort of sit back. We started implementing some activities that we could nonetheless implement in the background. So one of the major achievements actually is the CEC green bond registration and issuance. So if you read the Capital Markets Master Plan document, it actually talks about us having issued a green bond by 2024. So we're way ahead of that milestone. But being the ambitious people that we are, we've had one. So basically, it's calling out to the market to say, we're not going to stop at one just because we've achieved it. We want more green bond issuances because it means that we're just ahead of what we really want to achieve by 2031.
In 10 years' time.
Yes.
Well, maybe just a word to investors on this new launch of the green bonds. What is your word to them?
Okay. So I would encourage investors out there to keep their ears to the ground. We are not sitting back. We are trying to make all these instruments available to the public as quickly as we can. Fortunately or unfortunately, the CEC issuance was done through a private placement, meaning that it wasn't opened up to the public. But the feedback from CEC was actually there were a lot of individuals that participated in that issuance. So that's quite encouraging that even individuals were able to participate in that. And it's now a listed instrument, meaning that you can ask your broker out there to see whether there's room for you to buy the CEC bond and participate in the capital markets that way. And look out for other issuances in the near future. We are keeping our fingers crossed that the companies that saw CEC successfully list their instrument will also come forward and use the capital markets in a similar way. And investors then have more variety in terms of instruments to invest in. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nonde. Maybe you can just now give us your final remarks as we come to the end of the discussion.
Okay. No, thank you. So my appeal really is to the members out there is to participate in whatever way they can in this grand plan that we are calling the Capital Markets Master Plan. I know as a government, we tend to produce a lot of documents, but the Capital Markets Master Plan is a different kind of document for us. We want the participation of everyone, and especially in terms of taking us to account, in terms of what are the tangible results that you want to see on the ground. So hopefully we'll be giving you updates in terms of how far we've gone. And the expectation is that the public will then come back to us and tell us what they want to see achieved by 2031. What are their needs? We talked about the SME problem. Come to us with all your proposals, all your solutions that you think we can implement to actually actualize this document. We don't want it to remain on our shelves. It was meant for the Zambian people.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, dear viewers, we've been watching the Capital Markets with me, your host, Doreen, and my guest has been Mr. Nonde, who happens to be the Director of Market Supervision and Development. Of course, do join me next time as we bring to you different topics on the capital markets to keep you highlighted with what's going on the market, for you to get to learn more about capital markets and know what new products are coming on the market, how to invest, where to invest, which companies are actually out there listed for you to get to invest, and how these other private sectors are actually performing on the capital markets. For me, it's bye-bye. Do join me next time and stay close to Millenium TV.